There were times where I was sleeping and I felt my leg pulled and my body shifted down the bed like 1 to 2 inches. So that was the beginning. And I was thinking, okay, this is not normal.
Welcome to Happy Home, your space clearing podcast where my mother and I explore the world of space clearing. Join us as we share real life case studies and success stories of removing negative energies, spirits, poltergeists from people's homes, helping them create a harmonious and balanced living environment. Whether you're into energy work, spirituality, feng shui, or simply want to learn more about space clearing techniques, this podcast is for you. Tune in every week and discover the power of space clearing for yourself. Subscribe now to our podcast and start your journey towards a happier, healthier, and more vibrant home. All right, we are live for another episode, and I am joined by a lovely young man called Junior. Hello, Junior, welcome.
Hi, Lais. Thank you for having me on.
Thank you so much for doing this and for sharing your story today that, will require a lot of vulnerability from your side. So I'm really, really glad and grateful that you're doing this.
I feel like it's really important for people to be able to share these types of stories so that others can relate and understand that, there's more to life than what the eyes see and what's the world showing to us.
Absolutely. So the reason why I asked you to join me on this podcast is it wasn't just, like the regular space clearing that I have so many, but your entire story of what you shared, what was happening before the space clearing, and then how you navigated the space clearing itself, and how
Hmm.
you opened up your gifts that you already had, but even further. And
Yeah.
then there's so many themes like, astral traveling and psychic attacks that you endured, and of course,
Yeah.
poltergeist and spirits. And so I think the listeners, they will get such a wealth of stories and messages and themes here that I'm really grateful we can share all of that
Yeah.
because it's hard. Some people, they hear things in their homes, they think they might be crazy or making things up, but that's more or less how it started with you, wasn't it? That you contacted me because there was activities going on. So maybe you can share what was happening before you contacted me.
So, I was essentially experiencing movement, like attacks and movement on myself, on my body. So when it first started, what was happening is when I would sleep or take naps, I would feel certain parts of my body move on their own. Like my hand would lift up off my chest or my knee would move. There were times where I was sleeping and I felt my leg pulled and my body shifted down the bed like 1 to 2 inches. So that was the beginning. And I was thinking, okay, this is not normal. Something's going on here. But I don't know what it is, and I don't know who to go to or what to do in order to figure out, what can I do moving forward. And so that resulted in me like losing sleep because as I was sleeping, that would happen. I would fall asleep for like maybe 5 minutes, and then right as I fell asleep, these activities were happening. So day to day, I was waking up fatigued, tired, and it was affecting right my life, my daily activities. Eventually, I went to go see a reader, and they were telling me, "Hey, there's a spirit there, and it wants you to pay attention. It's trying to talk to you." And I'm like, "Oh, okay. So what do I do?" And they're like, "Just try to talk to it. It's been saying, 'Hey, listen to me. I'm here.'" So I thought it was a spirit that needed help. But what ended up started happening was I um noticed that when I would sleep, my shirt would be up near my chest or my
Mm.
pants would be down near my ankles. And I'm like, yeah, this is not normal.
Mm.
And so that started to lead me to believe like I'm being molested at this point by something because I'm pretty sure I'm not pulling down my pants to
Mhm.
my ankles or lifting my shirt up, right? And that it wasn't just one time, it would happen over and over and over again.
Mm.
So I went back to the reader and I asked for more information, and she's like, "Yeah, there's a spirit here, and it's not very happy. It's actually pretty angry."
Mm.
Um, Now there was it progressed into a moment where I was sleeping. I was taking a nap. This is during the day now, like daylight. My curtains were open in my bedroom. I was sleeping, and as I was about to like fall into a deep sleep, I've sensed the male presence enter my room.
Mm.
Well, that male presence was mad.
Mhm.
And I couldn't see it, but like spiritually, telepathically, I knew it was there. And so since it was male, I'm being a guy, I'm like, you can't talk to me that way. Right. So I yelled back at him. I don't remember what I said, but I certainly projected the energy of like, hey, I'm gonna stand up for myself. Well, in response to that, this spirit got on top of me and I'm laying on my side and it stabbed me with a knife. I don't know how I knew it was a knife, but it
Mm.
stabbed me with a knife on the right side of my body. What was interesting about that particular experience was I physically felt the pain
Mm.
um of being stabbed. And I've never been stabbed before, but it really hurt. So once that happened, I realized I'm not in a really good position here. I yielded to the spirit and I apologized and I said, I'm sorry. Whatever I said, I'm sorry. I won't do that again. But there was another moment much later down, like a few weeks or months, where again I was sleeping and then I got assaulted, like sexually assaulted.
Mm. Mhm.
Um, so when that happened, I woke up and I was, I think most people would be like both spiritually and mentally distraught or destroyed. Um, so with all of the things, and in between those two events, right, I was still being harassed when I was sleeping. This spirit didn't want me to get sleep. Um, so in between those two events, or after that event occurred, I was momentarily spiritually, mentally, and physically broken at that point. But I started to realize that these onslaughts of things that I was occurring was what this spirit wanted to do. He wanted to break me. He wanted it to push me into a corner so that essentially maybe his goal was to kind of just take over me. And when I put that together, I realized that's not happening. I'm not as weak as you think I am. And everything that you do from this point moving forward, it's certainly traumatizing, but you're giving me information
Mm.
on um what you're weak against and the intensity of the attacks that are occurring is telling me that I'm getting stronger spiritually. So so it continues and I think this spirit ultimately realized that yeah, he's starting to understand he's getting stronger. Um, and this is what when I emailed you, I'm like, this is right, the most important detail that I wanted to share
Mm.
was there was one night, it was like 2 a.m. Or something around that time, where I woke up and I felt like my body, well, not my body, my spirit, my energy was being torn in half. Like he was just trying to tear me in half. And it was the most excruciating pain I've ever experienced in my life. But what was interesting about that though was I didn't feel pain in my body.
Mhm.
Um, but when it happened, I just remember yelling out loud spiritually, like, stop. There's no way I could fight him off or anything like that. Uh, in the past, I've had like, attacks where I'm not able to move, sleep paralysis, but eventually I'm able to break free. This particular instance, though, was so intense that I knew I was done for. And so I yelled out loud, stop. I don't know if my spirit guides came in or the spirit just gave up and said, okay, like you learned your lesson. Um, but somehow I was able to break free, and then I felt my eyes, and they were wet,
Mm.
and I'm like, I can't believe this. My body was crying without me even knowing it. So from that moment on, I was like, I'm not safe here. I have to get up. I'm crying, like whimpering uncontrollably. But before I left my house, I said to the spirit out loud, this isn't over. I'll be back.
Mhm.
Because again, despite this being a very traumatic experience, I said, you just giving me more information. You're scared. You are really scared that I'm getting stronger. So I get back, and then being a Catholic, being raised Catholic, I'm like, okay, holy water, Bible, get things blessed, bring that in the house. That was the avenues I started to go down. And while it seemed like it had for maybe a week or two an effect, ultimately the spirit either developed resistances or it found ways around those solutions. So I'm like, okay, look, I'm at the end of my rope. I go to the reader. I'm like, hey, this is what's happening to me, right? You've been helping me all along with what's going on. And so can you contact my spirit guides and have them tell me what I need to do? And per my spirit guides, the things that I needed to do were like connect with the land and then right, eventually you're gonna get help and we'll tell you what to do. What I was told, interestingly enough, was to decorate. I'm like, what? How is this a solution? But I'm not gonna doubt what they've given me. I'm like, okay, this is what I got, right? And so just like, okay, this is you're gonna get advice, and then there's gonna be a day where you guys are just gonna essentially meet, and right, it's gonna be the culmination of this experience, and it's gonna be over. So I get the guidance with decorate, and then I invite a few cousins over to right help me address the spirit. I buy holy water, and the idea of decorate that came to me was buy crosses, hanging up in the room, like have a rosary and stuff like that as we attempt to make contact with the spirit. Prior to that day coming up, um, my idea in my mind was I'm gonna attack it. We're gonna use the holy water and we're gonna go at it.
Mhm.
The day of, or 2 days before, I was meditating, like preparing for war essentially, because at this
Mhm.
point, right, it tried to murder me spiritually, and I'm like, yeah, you've crossed the line, and this is it. We're gonna take care of it. But during one day during meditation, I felt I, I wasn't sure, but I felt like tears falling
Mhm.
on me. And so I'm like, hold on, are you crying? Like, are you actually saying that you're sorry that for what you did? And so that meditation occurs, but the time and date that I set to meet with my cousins to kind of take care of this wasn't until 2 days later. So I was like, okay, if you're, um, what's the word? Sad or remorseful for what you did, you know, I'll forgive you. So when my cousins came, I told them, here's the plan instead. All I'm gonna do is we're gonna go up into my room. We're gonna talk to the spirit. I'm just gonna let them know, lay out everything that it did to me, and at the end say, I forgive you. I'm gonna work with my spirit guides and my guardian angels to ask you to bring you over to the light. It seems like this is what you want to do now.
Mhm.
So, and that's exactly what we do. We go out, we go to the room and I just state everything. And then after that, we throw holy water everywhere around my house. And then that night, I pray to my spirit guides and my guardian angel, like, hey, right, he's ready to go. Can you help him out with this? So I'm thinking at that point, it's over.
Mhm.
Well, for about 2 weeks, the activity started to settle down, and then all of a sudden, it just went back to business as usual. But what started happening was while I was sleeping, I started feeling rushes of like energy hit my third eye. And I'm like, right. And like it was hitting me pretty hard. Like it was pushing me back. And I'm like, is this possession attempts?
Mhm.
Um, and so I'm like, wait a minute, this is not good. What I would do at that point was I would take my hands and I would just like sleep like this to cover my third eye.
Mhm.
Well, in response, the spirit, when my hands were like this, it would pull my hands off my face.
Wow.
I'm like, okay, right? Again, very scary because it's telling me it's increasing its attacks because, it really wants to take me over. And I'm telling the spirit, I'm like, you're not going to do it. Again, I'm at this point where like, I know every time you attack me, it's scary. I'm traumatized from it, but I'm also getting information. That was the main thing, is not to allow myself to feel the fear and be paralyzed and not take action. So, um, I'm certainly scared, but I'm like, I can't stay there because if he pushes me into the corner, that's it, I'm done. Um, so he's pulling my hands off my face, and so I buy a sleeping mask and I put it on there and I put holy water over it. I'm like, okay, let's try that. Eventually, we reach a stalemate, and I get to the point where like I'm not gonna win. He's not gonna win. I'm just gonna have to live with this. So for about a month or two, I'm like, okay, right, let me see what I can do. And then I start to explore other things. I use sage. I use throw salt everywhere in my house. I go up into my attic and throw salt there. Um, Holy water, Palo Santo incense. Like I was literally trying everything that I could. And then I was talking to my family and I was like, hey, what do you think I should do? And nobody really had an answer. And so I asked a family member, I'm like, hey, do you think you can help me coordinate an exorcism with a priest, a priest that blessed my house previously. And I don't know if they didn't pick up on the sense of urgency or if they're reluctant to do it because um maybe they were embarrassed that right this would get out and they would put a mark on like the family, so to speak.
Mm.
So once I saw that reaction, I knew I had to go out on my own, but I didn't know what to do. So I started to like look up on YouTube how to get rid of spirits.
Mhm.
Play music while you sleep or put salt and water next to your bed, right? It'll repel them. And I was trying literally everything and anything. And then at that point, I remember having a conversation with somebody where they alluded to cleansing, like house cleansing. I'm like, okay, you know, let me try this. No one else has recommended it. No one else in my family or in my immediate circle was going through something like this. And I'm like, I'm just gonna jump off a cliff at this point. I'm at the end of my rope. And that's where I found you and
Mm.
we met and we discussed and the story, yeah,
Yeah.
essentially, yeah, you helped me with that.
Incredible the way you share the story. It sounds like, you've always been sensitive to spirit because you have this ability to feel it. But I think it was pretty new for you, this experience, right?
This was really intense. The level of intensity was nothing I've ever experienced before, but this has been happening ever since I moved into this home and maybe even before then. So I think the spirit's been following me for
Mhm.
quite a while.
Yeah.
It's just it was very subtle in the things that it would do to me. Because in
Mhm.
other places, at other homes or other apartments I've lived at, I've woken up with like pants down at my ankles or shirt up near my neck. And I'm like, okay, I don't get this. But I never paid attention to it. So in many respects, the spirit helped me by raising the intensity on the activities he was doing. And I'm like, okay, well, here we go. We're gonna solve
Yeah.
this.
And I remember you had shared you already went through a rough patch as it was with your private life. Do you want to share what was happening?
Yeah. So the way all this started was, um, I was single for a very long time. I mean, when I say long time, I mean 15 years. Uh,
That
and
is long.
and then one day, we have a family party, and my brother invites a girl, a neighbor that's near us, to the party. Um, and we encounter each other there, and I think nothing of it, think nothing of that encounter. Well, um, she just had barely moved in, and I had some furniture that I was looking to offload, get rid of. So during the party, I asked her, "Hey, are you interested in this?" She said yes. And so we exchanged contact info and set up a time and date to, transfer over the furniture. And I thought that was the end of it, right? I didn't think anything of it. Well, she started asking me like, "Hey, are you available? Do you want to hang out? Do you want to get lunch?" So we meet for lunch, like one or two times, and after the second time, she starts expressing interest, and I'm not interested in her at all. So to be completely transparent, I don't know her, and I'm not saying anything about, women that are in this particular situation. It's just something that I wasn't attracted to.
Sure.
She already had two kids and she was going through a divorce.
Mm.
So that to me was not appealing. Um, Only because of the baggage that I knew was going to exist there.
Mhm.
But during a one of our second lunch, no, our first time we met for lunch, I saw her aura. And I'm like, hold on. I've never
Whoa.
seen, it's been a long time since I've seen a person's aura. So that I took as a sign, but I ignored it. I'm
May
like,
I
no,
ask what it looked like? Did it have
it
a
was white.
color?
It
White?
was white. Yeah, it was
Okay.
white. It was really, really bright.
Mm.
And so I ignored it. And then the second time we met, I just, I looked in her eyes and I'm like, you're never gonna find a girl like this ever again. There's something different about her. So despite, right, from the surface, she not being very appealing with their relationship situation,
Mhm.
um, I jumped off a cliff and I'm like, okay, fine, let's do this.
Mm.
So we get together and immediately I saw the red flags. I
Mm.
saw the drama, and I started to feel the emotional baggage and pain she had from previous relationships and her her current relationship is being projected on me.
Wow.
But uh I felt like I can save her because I've been in that situation where you have nobody. There's nobody you can turn to, right? And I've made it out of that type of scenario before. So I'm like, look, I can be here for you. I can help you get out of this. Um, but again, she kept projecting things on me, and I didn't realize it at the time. Uh, but what I can say is that as we were interacting with one another, I was getting angry. And I was starting to realize I'm starting to absorb her emotions. And so that was the first sign that I was an empath at that point. And
Mm.
like, this is not good for my mental health. Um, but I start to, right, I'm like, okay, right, uh, a previous relationship in the past, a girl did the same thing for me. She essentially sacrificed herself in order
Mhm.
for me to get to a better spot. That relationship ultimately ended, but that's what kind of where I was coming from. Like, okay, this is life saying it's time to pay back your dues, right? You owe this because someone else did this for you.
Mm.
Um, well, that was the whole approach and mindset that I had with this particular girl. But there was a dream that I had like about a week and a half into it where I was in a delivery room and I was given a newborn baby. I didn't know who these people were. And I'm like, hold on, you're giving me your newborn baby to hold. So I take it and I'm trying to protect it with, with all my life. And I'm trying to nurture it because it's newborn, right? It's so fresh that I'm like, I don't want anything to happen to you. But when I attempt to give the baby back to the mother, oh gosh, this was so traumatizing. I drop the baby and the baby falls
Oh
face first on
gosh.
the floor.
Oh.
So I woke up distraught, not knowing what that really meant, but I knew something bad was going to happen. Little did I know what that was going to lead to. But 2 days later, another thing happened where she was projecting anger on me, and I was like, I can't do this no more. Right? I'm
Mm.
sorry, but my mental health is not it's not where it needs to be. I'm trying to help you, but you don't it's what I'm seeing is you don't want this help. So I ended it with her. Um, 2 days later, I'm like, that was that a knee-jerk reaction? And I start to cry, like as if I'm really heartbroken.
Mm.
So at this point, we're only together for 2 weeks, and I'm like, I don't understand this. I barely know this girl. But the feelings that I had for her were so strong. And again, the reason why I say 15 years is because these feelings, while somewhat familiar, are also somewhat strange because I haven't felt stuff like this before.
Mhm.
Um, so I was trying to make it up with her, saying, "Hey, I apologize, can we talk about this?" And ultimately she said, "No, I think we both need time to grow." So I'm like, "Okay." I took that to heart. I'm like, "Let me reflect on everything and figure out where I went wrong, what changes I could make, and what could I have done differently." So I spent the next like 3 months trying to figure out, what can I do to show her that, hey, I actually really care about you.
Mm.
During the breakup, I've experienced this before, but not to this intensity. And what I'm referring to is I started to smell her pretty consistently. She's nowhere near me. So I'm smelling all these different scents for the next 3 months there. I'm like, I can't believe it. I'm this spiritually, emotionally connected to her, and it was only 2 weeks, right? What is going on here? No one can explain it to me. I can't even like, rationalize it. And so I do what I normally do is I just write in a journal to try to, get these feelings and emotions out. I start writing, as I think we're gonna get into later,
Mhm.
poetry to
We
kind of help
will.
me,
Yes.
right? To help me like deal with it. And also I write some to, hey, express to her like, hey, this is how I really felt about you. Um, hoping that she would understand. Well, what I learned from stories of other people is, like soon after we started or it ended, she got on online dating and started to talking to other guys. I'm like,
Mm.
oh, okay, well, that's your choice, like that's what you want to do, that's what you want to do. Um, but there was nothing serious going on. And so I'm like, I'm still gonna work on this. If it leads back to you, if it ends, I don't care. I still have to process this because, right, I keep catching your scent. And so that's telling me, there's still things here that you need to work through. Uh, and so that relationship ended in October of last year.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'm processing it up until um December 25th, Christmas Day.
Mm.
So I'm towards the end of finally getting over it. And then out of nowhere, as I'm working on a project, I don't know if this is my spirit guides or my intuition, but I get a message and it says, "You know what's wrong with you?" I couldn't believe it. "You know what's wrong with you? You were in love with her."
Oh.
And I'm like, "Are you kidding me?" You know, on Christmas Day, I don't know if this is a joke or if it's a gift, right? And so that night, I'm like, okay, so that's what these feelings are, right? I finally get it. So I'm like, oh, finally, I understand how I feel about you. And so in about 2 weeks, my niece is having her 21st birthday. He thinks, my brother, that she and I have made up because I asked for her phone number. He doesn't know that, there's no
Mhm.
communication with us. And so he invites her to this party.
Mm.
I didn't know that. So the party comes, I show up, I'm hanging out, and maybe like 15 minutes later or 30 minutes later, she's there. And I don't see her, but I can hear, right, her through the door. And she's with two guys.
Mm.
And so I don't make any eye contact with her. So I leave or I go to the front of the house and I just hang out there. And eventually I just leave. I get it, right? And so that night I had a decision to make. I could deal with the pain directly, or I could take like a, sleeping pill to go to sleep, or I can drink, alcohol to get me over this. And I chose the first option, whereas I just dealt with the pain directly. So that night was
Wow.
very, very traumatizing. I had a very hard time sleeping, but I made it through without relying on any kind of substance or running away from it.
Mm.
Um, and so that was essentially the start of everything. Um, and then about 2 weeks later, as I was sleeping, I got another message come to me saying, "Just say her name, just start over." And I'm like, what's this all about? Um, I didn't know who that was referring to. I never really got clarity. But as I mentioned before, that's when the intensity of the attack started to occur.
Wow.
So
Would you say the spiritual intensity of that relationship opened you up energetically even more than you were before? And that,
I think that was the trigger there
yeah,
is that spiritual energy and that trauma is
right.
essentially the spiritual awakening that occurred.
Yes.
And so once that occurred, this spirit that's always been around me is like, oh, right now it's you're at a higher level. We can take everything else to a higher level.
Mm. I love that you share this because that's how my spiritual awakening occurred through heartbreak, and that's how I got into it. And I think this pain, this deep pain in our soul when we have a soulmate relationship, no matter how long it lasted for, and it ends, that it causes so much pain that we just break open, right?
Yeah, yeah. And I hear that a lot from other people who are also awakening.
Mm.
What I didn't realize was or what I had going on at that time was that emotional trauma going on. I had trauma from my childhood that I was dealing with, and then the
Mm.
spiritual trauma on top of all of that. So it was like everything coming at me at once, and somehow like I survived and managed it, and I'm in a much better place now.
Yeah,
It's
those,
that could be. Go
the
ahead.
most difficult relationships, it's what they say, it's the best teachers for us and the most,
Yeah,
yeah, the people who awaken us essentially.
yeah. It's hard to see that when you're in the middle of
I
it, going through
know,
all of
I
the pain,
know.
right? Like, okay, why am I going through this? Why does all of this have to come at me all at one time? Can't you like all stand in line and like, can I deal with this one at a time? But life's like, no, right?
Exactly.
And so, so I had, right, there were so many different like options that I could have taken. I could have easily went into substance abuse,
Hmm.
right? I could have most extreme option committed suicide.
Hmm.
But I, I I never really considered those because I knew those weren't the answer. Like just deep down inside, like intuitively from a soul spiritual level and from like a personality level, I'm like, no, that's the easy route,
Hmm.
right? If it was if this was easy, just like anything else in life, everybody would be doing it. There's a reason why, like, this is hard for you, right? You don't know what it is right now, but there's a reason why.
Yeah, it's incredible. It's in spirituality, we have this term called the dark night of the soul. And even though it's not just a night, but it lasts sometimes many months or even a year or longer.
Yeah.
Would you say that this is more or less what you experience?
Yeah. And
Mm-hmm.
interestingly enough, I started to hear that term.
Mm-hmm.
Dark Night of the Soul. I'm like, hold on. So, back to like you're going through this for a reason. Now that I'm on the other side of this, like I'm starting to realize the spiritual world is so amazing. It's so beautiful. There's so much to learn.
Mm.
I, I'm so distracted. I'm like, I want to learn that. I want to learn that. I want to do this.
So true.
Yeah,
Yeah, we're going to talk a bit about your gifts that came out beautifully and are still developing, I'm sure.
sure.
But I just wanted to speak a bit about when I zoned into your house. Um, and we did the space clearing and the messages that came through. I think the first thing I saw when I zoned in was this male Catholic priest that was really nasty, like really negative energy. And I had glimpses, and my guides were showing me visions of while he was alive, he was molesting children.
Mm,
And so he didn't go to the light because he knew, and being Catholic, he believed in hell, of course. He didn't want to go to hell. So he stuck around, and no matter what you and your cousins and whoever came into your house did, nothing would get him out of there because he was so scared of being judged and going to hell.
mm,
And so he stuck around, and that's why he was molesting you because, yeah, he thought he was preying on you, right?
yeah.
Um, and so I had all these glimpses. I was like, oh my God, this is horrible. This is really insane. And so I remember I took quite a conversation with this priest to make him go to the light, essentially convincing him there is no such thing as an actual hell.
Hmm.
We all go back to source. Of course, we accumulate karma that we have to live out in our next lives. But eventually he believed me and he went. He went to the light. And so it was a bit what you said at the beginning, which I really loved. It's you wanted to encounter him with forgiveness, and I did the exact same thing. It's like you will be forgiven, and you have to forgive yourself primarily for what you did.
Yeah,
Because forgiveness and self-forgiveness is the only way we can move forward with this.
yeah.
And so the power of compassion, like you had as well, and the power of forgiveness, and me helping with that as well, that really helped him to go then. But your part was essential in this, him knowing that you forgave him, that was essential.
Mm,
That was
okay.
beautiful. Yeah. And
Okay.
so once he was gone, and that is a funny story here because I saw this bat spirit, remember?
Oh, so that made it really hard to make sense of. So prior to contacting you, I would hear like knocking noises all around my house, like every single place. And in places where I knew there weren't water pipes because I went into my attic to see where the pipes were running. So I'm like, what is this sound? And there was one time where I was meditating. So my eyes are closed. I was meditating and I just felt this swirling energy going in random directions all around me. And I thought at that moment it was the priest trying to drive me crazy. But then you told me about the bat. I'm like, that's what that was.
That's
Okay,
so
that makes
crazy.
sense. Yeah.
Yeah, so that was easier to remove because the bat just went off. But yeah, that was funny. But then lots of beautiful things started showing up, like your spirit guides, and there was a lot of indigenous American type guides who came through, including one who was your father in a previous life,
Hmm.
which is, I mean, you're not even American indigenous in this life, but you were in your past life. And he was very fond of you. He was your spiritual father, he explained. He wanted to be part of your spiritual awakening and he wanted to connect with you. And I think when I shared this with you, you mentioned the reading you had where she also said, connect to the land. And that's where he is.
Yeah.
That's his land. Can you share with us where you live, which part of the world?
I live in California,
Mm-hmm.
Oceanside. I don't know what the walking distance is, but like driving distance, it's literally like 1 minute away.
Yeah.
San Luis Rey.
Yeah.
And that mission, from what I did in terms of research, was around since like the late 1700s, maybe 1800s.
Oh.
So it's been there. And then stories that I've heard, I haven't verified this information myself, is that there was large amounts of, I think, deaths. I don't know if they were murders, but
Mm.
there was suppression going on during that time, and lots of people
Mm.
died in that area. There's actually a cemetery there.
Indigenous cemetery.
I don't know if it's in, well, when I looked at some of the gravestones there,
Mm-hmm.
it looked like a mixture of people.
Mm.
But
Yeah.
there's certainly one on the property. Like one of the gravestones read like 1810 or something like that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he was a land spirit. He was still roaming the lands and he was like a protector of the lands and very much connecting with you, wanting to connect more. So that was beautiful. And I remember there was a spirit animal that came through for you. Was it an owl or?
There was an owl, and then so there was an owl that I think he said wanted to work directly with me, and then there was an
Yes,
eagle
an
that was
eagle.
hovering over in the land.
Yes. And
Yeah.
then I remember, was it maybe a few weeks after or a few months even, where you said you started hearing them?
So that, yeah, okay. That was hard. Like it wasn't hard, but it was like interesting to see or
Yeah.
hear. The day of the cleanse, um, I meditated.
Mm-hmm.
And during that meditation, I heard the sound of a horse, like
Oh,
neighing. Not just once, not just twice, but the entire time I'm meditating.
wow.
Um, in this particular area, there isn't what I thought at the time was there isn't a place to like, house horses. But what I learned is that there's a ranch nearby that I've never heard horses there before. So, to only hear this horse during meditation and only on that day, I've been in this home for 6 years now, but to
Mm,
only hear it on that day, I'm like, that's a sign. That's a clear sign that, what you've told me in terms of my spirit guide,
mhm,
um, spiritual father is true. And so I interpreted that as he wanted me to let me know that I'm here. I'm watching over you. I'm right here,
mm,
just right around the corner. Uh, so that was the day of the cleanse. And then on
mm,
the 3rd of October, I'm working and this is broad daylight. I
mhm,
hear outside of my place the sound of an eagle. And
mhm.
this eagle is like screaming as loud as it can, right? It wants to be heard.
Oh, wow.
Eagles are typically in areas that are wide open, looking for prey. I'm in a very urban area, and
Mm,
the trees I have are at most, I don't know, 30 feet tall. So
mhm.
it sounded like it was in the trees. I didn't bother to look, I just heard it. And I'm like, again, been here 6 years, never heard it before. I'm like, okay, well, that's 2 for 3, right? So we got spirit guide, father, we got the eagle. I'm like, all right, cool. So right, it's only like reinforcing my belief that, what you told me is true. Not that I doubted it, but they're like, just in case you do, right, here's some proof.
Yeah, exactly. We're here.
Not just spiritual, but physical proof
Yeah.
that we're here. And then, so that's the 3rd. And then October 16th, at night, again, I'm meditating. And this is 7:45. This is at 7:45 p.m. From what I understand, I could be wrong. Um, owls are not normally not active until like midnight, nocturnal hours. Well, 7:45 p.m., I'm meditating and I hear the sound of an owl like hooting over and over and over again. So here's the theme. Been here 6 years. Trees are not very tall. It's not a forest, but I'm hearing an owl hooting. I'm like, okay, you guys made your point. I get it.
Oh,
You're
that's
all
good.
here.
Yeah.
But one of the things that you recommended to me was like meditate, ground yourself, connect with the land, and try to
Mm,
connect with the spirit guides, right?
mhm,
And I was having a hard time. I'm like, I don't know what to do. Then you introduced me to grounding meditation, like, hey, this is what you do. I'm like, oh, I didn't know that that's what you do. When you meditate, I thought you just try to clear your mind. So I started to meditate with intention. As I got better at it, I started intending, like, okay, I want to connect with my spirit guides. I would do that over and over and over again. And sure enough, I finally met him during
mm,
meditation. I met
mm.
him. Not only was he not there, the eagle was there and the owl. So they're like, now if you don't believe us on right physical realm, well, we've connected on the spiritual realm.
Oh, that's so
Um,
adorable.
I'm like, I cannot, like, who can make this story up? Like, I don't know who can, but this is not a story. It's really true.
Wow. Yeah, that is incredible. And I also remember pretty much right away after the clearing you shared, you had subscribed to some course. I don't know if it was online or in person.
Um, so not right away. I think it wasn't about until a month later, but I started to take classes on like psychic development and
Yes.
mediumship.
Yes.
And so, we do like it's a class environment which people are doing readings for each other. So it's about anywhere from 4 to 6 people. And we all take turns trying to read each other and, what comes through. Very first time it was rough. I was barely getting information. Um, and then like towards the fourth class, which was just recently, uh, information started to flow. And all the people I was reading, essentially, for about 95% of the information I was getting, they were able to affirm.
Wow.
So I'm like, yeah, this is real. Like you
That is
really have it.
incredible. Yeah, you
Yeah.
opened up all your psychic senses.
Yeah.
It's incredible. So how do you retrieve information? Is it an inner knowing? Is it visions? Is it like how do you get it?
Right now it's like visions. I see it in my mind.
Mm.
And it started off with just like either a number or a color.
Mm-hmm.
But um and sometimes like I don't see anything. I feel it. Like I'll tell someone like I sense for you a male presence.
Mm.
Like, and I'll give them specifics. Male presence, very large, very athletic, like muscular.
Mm-hmm.
Another instance was like, oh, for some reason, um, this last class, I'm like, someone's wanting to tell me, like, show me a red sweater, like a red holiday Christmas sweater, you know? And she was like, oh, that's probably my mom because of XYZ. And I'm like, so it's hard. It's hard. Like, what I'm starting to understand is, right, it's very difficult to make sense of the stuff that you're getting, but
Mhm.
if you give it to that person, right, um you're probably better off not interpreting what is being shown to you and allow them to work with it.
Yeah, so now you can almost call yourself a medium. Not almost, like definitely. Suddenly,
Yeah.
you're a
I
medium.
had no idea. I had no idea that I had this ability, but it's pretty awesome.
Yeah, you do. So do you feel you will continue on that path?
I think I'm gonna keep going down this
Oh my
path.
God. I'm gonna book
Another
a
thing.
reading at some point.
Hopefully I'll be better by then. And so another thing I'm also exploring, I don't know if you mentioned it, but a whole bunch of people, readers now,
Mhm,
readers that don't know each other, they're all saying one thing in common,
mhm.
one word, healer. They keep
Healer,
saying
yes,
healer.
yes.
Yeah. And I'm looking at them like, huh? I don't know what that means. But I'm going down that path. And so I've also enrolled in a course to learn Reiki.
That is so exciting.
Yeah, I can't wait.
Oh my God. You're gonna be incredible because you have the psychic senses all working for you, and then you can feel energy too. So you're just gonna be incredible.
Sounds like,
Wow.
yeah, I'm pretty excited. Pretty
Yeah.
excited to learn.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, it's just incredible to hear your story and the whole trauma you went through. I mean, it started early when you were a child, of course, but then kept perpetuating in your relationships and so on. To
Yeah.
see how it transformed you and empowered you in the end into your spiritual
Yes.
awakening. And now look at you.
Yeah. Again, in the middle of everything, I, again, I didn't consider suicide,
Mm,
but I was asking my spirit guides and guardian angel, like, can I go home?
mm,
I can't deal with this. Can I go home?
mhm.
Oh, and I think they knew me better than I knew myself. They're like, no, not in a mean way. Like, no, you are stronger than you really realize, right? You
Mm,
can do this.
that's
And
beautiful.
so a lot of the readers that I've gone to, they're like, you're getting a lot of love being sent to you, a lot of
Mm,
ancestral love. Oh,
yes.
that's one thing that people have been telling me during readings. Both readings that I paid for and readings in the class is this is another theme that keeps coming through. Is like you have a lot of ancestors coming through.
Yeah.
So I wanted to share this
Wow.
because again, right, it relates to like my awakening. But there was one time where I was trying to go to sleep. I'm not meditating and I'm not in a deep sleep. I'm trying to go to sleep. All of a sudden, I'm visualizing in my mind's eye. a whole bunch of people
Mhm.
lining up wanting to meet me.
Oh my
And I'm
goodness.
looking at that and I'm like, I don't know who you guys are. But like they want to hug me and they're like
Oh,
welcoming there. And so I'm like, oh, this is what everyone's been telling me.
that's
These are
so
the
cool.
ancestors that are trying to
Oh.
connect with you.
And they're from the Philippines, right? Both lines?
I couldn't tell who they were. I just knew
Oh,
there was a whole bunch of people and
oh,
like they were so happy to see me. And I'm like,
wow.
yeah, it
Incredible.
was it was an amazing experience. And it's just more affirmation of like, this is real. We're
Mhm.
supporting you, we're encouraging you, we're happy you're taking this path.
That is so true. We are protected and guided for always. I mean, we're always being loved up on, and our ancestors are there, our guides are there. Just, I can understand how people sometimes feel desperate and lonely and like nobody is there for them.
Yeah,
I just wish that people could open up, spiritually and just know that there's so much love out there, even if we cannot
yeah,
see it with our open eyes, but it's just there.
yeah,
So,
yeah. Lots of it's not so the intensity in terms of trauma, is one thing, but it mirrors itself in the intensity in terms of like learning, my growth. It's
mhm.
so fast, almost too fast for me, but I'm not going to complain, right? I'll go with it.
Yeah, it's pretty
And
fast. I agree.
wherever this goes, wherever this takes me,
Mm,
I'm just going to go with it. And that's one of the things I realized is like, you have to be open. You have to be, go with the flow. Don't force it. And just trust in the universe, trust in the process, trust that they're there for you,
mm,
working behind the scenes. You may not see it, you might not understand these small nudges or events are, coming to you and what reason they're happening, but they are happening for a reason.
mm,
Um, and sometimes those things can be very significant, as kind of what I described, where I was getting like assaulted, attacked, on a daily
mm.
basis. That ultimately led to again where I'm at today, which I'm really
Absolutely.
I don't wish anybody to go through what I went through, but
Mm,
I'm extremely thankful for going through that experience because it's connected me with people like you and other light
mm.
workers and to the
Yes,
spirit world.
that's so true. Yes, and I want people and listeners to know if they have experiences at home, whether it's they're hearing noises or they feel attacked at night or whatever it is, even if they just sense like there's something not right here, that they should listen to that intuition because they are not crazy, right?
Yeah,
There's a lot that can
yeah,
go on in the spiritual world that we're not aware of, that we cannot see, unless literally you can see spirits, because some people can see them with open eyes.
yeah.
Um, but there's so much that can be going on, and I just want people to know they're not crazy and they should honor what they're feeling.
So let me piggyback off that. What I what I want to say is that you know, all at the end of the day, trust yourself because during that time, and even now, am in an environment and with family and immediate circles that don't believe this.
Mm.
They actually suggested I go see a doctor because they
Mm.
thought I'm crazy. And so right, it's very difficult when everyone's pointing you and saying it's you. There's nothing going on, it's you. But you have to really be strong in those particular moments and trust and believe in yourself. And
That's
then understand that you need to ask for help. Ask spirit guides for help. And then, hopefully they can nudge you and point you in the direction of the people that can help you
exactly
grow and deal with, particular situations that you're dealing with.
so true. My goodness, there's so many beautiful messages that you're sharing today. And I I asked you at the beginning, would you be available to recite some of your poetry? Because I know you have some poetry that you wrote.
Sure. Um, so I'm gonna warn you, towards the end, it's gonna get loud. Just one word. I'll try to
Okay.
keep it thin, but just in case it gets loud. This isn't really related to a breakup, but more so from encouragement to other people out there.
Oh, great.
And so this resulted in speaking to youth about poetry and like encouraging them, regardless if it's poetry or not,
Mhm.
to write in a journal to help them process things, because that's the tool that I found to be extremely helpful in terms of maintaining my own mental health. And as a male growing up, I don't know what it's like today, but as a male growing up, that was something that was shunned upon. Like if you wrote in a journal, you were considered weak
Oh
during my
my
childhood.
goodness, I can imagine. Yes.
So writing in a journal, along with many other things in my life, this is another thing that keeps repeating, is that like I have to go beyond the established norms and beliefs and like determine whether or not things are true for myself. So writing for me has been therapeutic in many, many ways.
Mm.
A lot of people, especially nowadays, right? Social media presents the illusion that we're all connected, but a lot of people feel disconnected and they feel lonely. They don't have anyone to talk to. Well, actually, no, that's not true. You have yourself that you can talk to through journal writing that can help you release the pressure that's built up.
Mhm.
That's one mechanism, right? There's certainly others out there, but that's one of them. And so that was kind of the message I gave to these kids. And as a result of that, I started to like formulate things in my mind, a general idea of what I wanted to write.
Mhm.
Um, I I'm not 100% sure how the things I write come to me. I don't know if it's intuition or my spirit guides coming to me.
Yeah,
I
your
think it's a
channel.
combination of two. I think
Yeah.
it's a combination of the two for sure.
Yeah.
So what I would like to share is something that I wrote called A Message from My Spiritual Guides.
Oh my God. Thank you.
And it goes like this. All right. We all walk different paths in life, but at the very least, writing is something I encourage you to explore. Jot down a few lines, step away from a few, then come back to it later to see if you can write a little more. Translate your feelings and emotions into words, even when it's sunny inside or when it's raining and it hurts. Writing is one way you can clear the clutter, and that can help you find the door to the end, only to realize there's a new path in front of you to begin. The next journey in your life. Hopefully, one day it will lead you to an open mic where you accept the challenge to stand in front of complete strangers and finally let your silent voice roar.
Wow. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Yeah, journaling is my favorite tool that I use daily too, so I really can relate to that.
Yeah, I think it's a really helpful tool.
Yes. And I'm sure that you can't start young enough. So, if you can encourage kids and youth to start writing down their emotions, especially the guys, right, who are so detached from their emotions,
Yeah.
that would be
And
amazing.
that's one thing that I think I want to emphasize and also bring up is that as males, we're supposed to be detached from feelings and emotions. Like one of the sayings, I don't know if they're, still promoted today is real men don't cry. And I find that to be completely false.
Yeah.
To be in touch with your feelings and emotions is not a weakness, it's a strength.
Mhm.
And I've hoped I've demonstrated that through things that I've discussed in my story, as well in some of the poetry that I write.
Yeah,
It's that's how males should see it, is it's not a weakness. If you can tap
exactly.
into it, eventually you'll establish and understand what your creative outlets are, and you'll be able to use that as a strength.
Yes, and I know you have a link where that I will put in the podcast description. People can click on it and it brings them to a website that has your, is it like
It has,
recorded with beside you,
yeah.
right?
So it's my first digital album that I
Mm-hmm.
created. Um, that doesn't include what I shared. But I'll certainly provide that link. And then I also think I put together some videos where I talked about not just the spiritual activity, but actually things I went through in all of my relationships in my life,
Mm.
where I kind of reflected upon, the key things and how that affected me and impacted me and helped me to grow essentially in the future.
Well, I can sense and feel that there's so much goodness coming, with you continuing on this path. Really, you will be of such help to so many people, and I'm really excited for you for what's to come.
I
So,
hope so. Yeah, I hope, at least one person can see this and say, okay, right, I'm going through something similar, or they can feel that positive energy. I remember when, we first met,
mm.
one of the first things you said to me is thoughts are energy, words are energy. And
Mm-hmm.
it didn't click with me at that time. But now I understand, right? Like if you constantly think negative stuff and say negative things, then that's what you'll invite. But
Exactly.
if you think positively, right, and you share that, not necessarily like, right, um, going, to save the world or be charitable, but just emit that from within,
Mm-hmm.
you know, that is what you will invite. So that is actually something very valuable that I took from you.
Yeah, totally. Words are so much energy. It's incredible.
Yeah.
Spoken and written, both.
Yep.
Mm. My dear, thank you so much for your
Thank you.
time and for really, you've been so vulnerable and so open with everything. I'm really honored to have met you, to have worked with you, but also to have this conversation now. So really, from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much.
Thank you. Again, it's been a very difficult journey, but it ultimately led me to connect with you and other people, like I mentioned before. And so another thing is like, to people, it might seem hard, but if you work through it, you persevere, eventually you'll meet the people that, will help you elevate you and lift you to get where you need to be.
Absolutely. Absolutely agree. Okay, goodbye, my dear.
Okay, bye.